Listened to and viewed from over 95 countries from around the world, this is the GridCast, and I am your host, Danny Cox. Behind the camera is Tyler McQueen, and with me is my co-host. He's a box owner and a grid enthusiast, and he gave me way too much bourbon last night when we shut down the bar. His name is Conan Bruce.
That wasn't me. That was a bartender.
Oh, dude, that was you all day, and some other league officials that we won't get
We're
into.
feeling good, though, because we're in the firehouse.
That's right. This is the flagship home of the GridCast, and we want to announce that we are going to start GridCastU coming up real soon.
Teach you how to play grid better.
That's right. And remember to head on over to www.thegridcast.com and sign up for the newsletter so you can be so you can get all the ins and outs of the NPGL and the grid and grid around you.
Absolutely. And another big announcement this week.
Yes.
If you haven't seen thegridleague.com, go to thegridleague.com and you will see Team GRIDCAST. I'm sorry. It's gridinvitational.com.
Oh,
gridinvitational.com. Go to both sites. They're awesome. Yeah. Both of them are. Gridinvitational.com. The NPGL is putting on an invitational. We've talked about it a lot. At the end of the year, at the championship week, it's going to be all week. It's going to be a huge event, and intermixed with the pro matches, they're going to do an amateur tournament, and Team GridCast is going to kick ass.
From Honey Badger USA.
Honey Badger USA. So go to the gridinvitational.com, sign up to be a fan, and be our fan, and let's crush every other team.
So, dude, with that huge announcement and really excited about it, let's go ahead and start the show. Hey guys, welcome to Quadrant 1. So we are here with head coach of the San Francisco Fire, Mr. JJ Jeremy Jones. Man, congratulations on yesterday's victory. That was pretty impressive. So we're going to get his take on what happened on day one of the matches. And that was DC Brawlers against the Boston Iron. And then it was LA Reign versus the Miami Surge. Right? Yep. So let's talk about these races. So the DC Brawlers, for the first time, we got to actually see the dynamic duo of Taylar Stallings and Becca Day.
Tall Day?
Yeah. That was pretty...
All day.
Is it all day or tall day?
No, I'm calling her Becca all day.
Becca all day. Oh, I like it. Hashtag Becca all day.
All day.
Right?
Yeah.
No, so we finally got to see the impressive duo. And no matter what, if they were 12 reps behind, if they're 8 reps behind getting the quad 4, they just crushed it. Does that kind of deflate the other team? Like, if you see that and you're like, oh, I got the lead, like, we're definitely going to take it, and then just...
Yeah,
it feels like no matter what you do.
It just slips away.
It puts the fear in you, when you know you have to be in a big lead to even have a chance.
Yeah.
It's something that you're always thinking about. And so, when you know that the other team has assets like that, you have to do everything you can to try to get those people in the quadrant 4, the biggest lead you can.
Yeah, that means you're pushing so hard in the beginning to try to get such a lead that you might not have anything at the end, So
and that echo is, that's one of the parts of the echo is why you see a split sometimes, is because some teams crush themselves to try to, to get the first one, and then you have to use the athletes again, and they just can't recover. And then the other team comes through, and maybe the other team spread the load a little bit more, and so then they're a little bit fresher, or maybe they rotated elements, so they're doing a different element, and then the second team can come in and win the second one.
Is there a strategy to be said there? Like, let's say you see yourself, getting beat in that first echo, but that they're wearing themselves out. Do you just kind of take your time and just make sure you get that 1 point? So
it's funny. Phoenix thought we were doing that. They thought that we had gamed it so that we would make them crush themselves on the first one, and then we were going to come back and smoke them on the second.
Yeah.
And just those dumbbell burpees over the box were so taxing, physically demanding, and it really is a taller athlete movement because having to step up onto the box and lifting the dumbbells up. It was our team isn't as tall as the combo of Danny Nichols and Brian Miller, and so they really got the lead on that. And it's funny because you can see at the moment with when a team is 1 rep ahead or 2 reps ahead on the dumbbell burpee over the box, that's a huge lead.
Huge.
Yeah, because you're not going to...
2 pull-ups is nothing.
Right.
2 of those is like the race is almost over.
It's not moving fast enough for you to be able to do 2 or 3 faster than the other person is.
Yeah, and so but going back to Becca and Taylar, like when teams have like a combo like that, it's something that you have to like. I personally try to think I'm already going to be sneaky, but I'm going to try to think of every little way to do it, and if I can make them get blown up,
right?
And then maybe keep my athletes use a more conservative strategy on the first echo, and then try to be more aggressive to just negate it so that it's we zero out at the end.
Right. Yeah. So people may not know about rule changes specifically for race 2. I know I had a lot of people in the stands ask me, was there a rule change for the mirror? Because they didn't understand how a guy's side could have way more reps than the girl's side, or vice versa. You don't have to be one rep away from each other anymore. You just have to finish the reps in the quadrant.
Yeah. And what we found last year, that was probably the hardest thing for the referees to do. You have 2 referees. They're both saying numbers. They're confusing each other. The athletes are confused, which ref is where, and staying within one rep made it very.
It's a great concept. It just wasn't realistic to do for.
Yeah, exactly. In theory, it should have worked really well, and it didn't. So then they said, let's just throw that out, and then we'll just let the athletes finish it in each element. And there's been talks about maybe even adding reps to make it so that if someone was to do an entire quadrant themselves, like that's a pretty phenomenal feat, and very few people in the league would be able to do 2 quadrants in a race.
Right.
If it was, the front squats in this case, if it was 12 or 14 reps per quadrant, it would still be an extremely fast race. But for someone to be able to do 14 unbroken would be a lot more rare, and very rare to have two quadrants.
Right. Okay. So about rule changes and decisions about refs, right? We want to showcase something that people had a lot of questions about Ryan Elrod and his back roll to support, and a couple other players. There's a decision made moving into this season about close reps. And what was that decision?
Well, we want things to be fast. We want there to be lots of action and to keep things flowing, and we want to let the athletes kind of take off the reins a little bit and let them perform. And so, the standard is we want to see the arms locked out and going through vertical. We don't need to see a pause or holding control. If the athlete has achieved that range of motion, they can keep going back. And the problem is with all the pausing and the holding, it just slows things down. And you can even see it on some of the cleans. It's better that the athlete comes up, and as long as their elbows are in front of the bar and their knees and hips open, the bar can fly off. It doesn't need to stop and then down, up, stop. It just slows the races down, and it slows the action down.
So it's a conscious decision by the league to say, hey, all the haters out there for looking at reps, bad reps for CrossFit or bad reps for Grid. That was a conscious decision that was made by the NPGL and Grid to say, no, those are reps. As long as they're completing the motion, they don't have to pause in order to make that happen, because that just makes everything flow. And
it's still the same movement. You're not taking anything away from the movement.
And it's not that one's better than the other, or what it is just that we decided to make it more consistent. To say, we're just going to say, when in doubt, as long as the range of motion is hit, we don't need to pause and show control.
Right.
Because then sometimes the refs, too, they'll make someone pause a little longer than the others. That was very true in the ladders. We're really good about, making athletes hold the bar and wait for the call. Mm-hmm. And if you have a ref, I think usually there's 2 refs in that race. If you have 2 refs, they're kind of make you wait that extra second for every bar.
Yeah,
for every athlete.
Yeah, no, I used to see it all the time when I judged at several regionals and even at the games once. And the time that takes a judge to go good or whatever, there's a long pause there. And some folks would be 2 or 3 seconds. Some would be just like this. And you add that up.
Yeah.
That's a significant difference.
On a thruster ladder, like in the McKinley race, if you're throwing the bar over your head, you get credit for it. You don't need to hold on to it and pause. I mean, if you're throwing it and stepping, or you're dancing around, you didn't show control. But the kind of the overall consensus was, if they hit lockout, they don't need to pause and show control, just to kind of make it consistent.
Yeah, that's easier. I think it should be easier for the refs too.
Yeah, we're really trying to make the job of the referees as easy as possible.
So going back to the Boston versus DC match, we saw that Janet Black for DC may not be in perfect grid shape as of right now. We saw her miss a couple snatches. Her grip gave out a couple times. Do you think that maybe that was because of the regional CrossFit competition and her getting ready for that?
That can definitely affect an athlete.
For the Masters qualifier, actually.
Yeah. To have two goals, on your plate, it will definitely affect your ability to excel at one or the other, and that could be the case. And those snatches were not light; those are not easy.
No.
Not unless you're a big, strong person.
We talk about how it's going to be really odd for there's going to be athletes that are going to be able to do it, but it's going to be odd for an athlete to be at elite status, podium ready for CrossFit, and also in grid speed and grid shape.
Oh yeah,
it's going to be very difficult for an athlete to be able to do both those things.
There will be some that's possible, but I think those will be the exceptions, right? I mean, wasn't it last year with Matt Frazier on New York's team after the triads was throwing up in a box?
Yeah.
And it's like this is weeks after he got second place at the CrossFit Games.
Right. Well, you saw
shape,
most
right?
guys out here.
I think he's in shape. He's a phenomenal athlete.
You saw most teams out here after the triads basically want to throw up.
Yeah. We had our guy Buddy. He is actually after he did those 5 snatches with the sprint. He's like tried to tell his teammates, "Don't hug me too hard because I'm going to throw up all over you." It's a different speed. Going that fast, that hard. We're going to see a little bit more deviation, and there will be dual sport athletes, doing both, but they'll be. I
don't think they'll be able to win in both sports.
Yeah, there won't be a lot of Bo Jacksons.
Right. Did he win in both though either?
Bo Jackson he had bow breakers. He broke the bats. Is anybody going to grab bars and just start bending bars around their bars?
We've actually bent many bars in here doing the hang cleans. Our girls, we broke 2 bars in 1 week, and we bent 1 men's bar that same week.
Eleiko bars?
Not Eleiko bars. That was our problem. They were not Eleiko bars
because that will take a feat.
Do. No, they were not Alicos, and now that's why we're going with all Alicos.
So Natalie Newhart was a standout for Boston.
Yeah.
She crushed the grid. And anything that she touched on the grid, she was a definite standout. And I think that she's downplayed a little too much in the league. Yeah. Because she needs to be showcased and highlighted a little bit more. That girl's a workhorse.
Yeah, she I think people write her off as a bodyweight specialist only, and I know that Josh, the coach, played her really well, and she got to not only do the stuff she was good at, but she also showcased some of her other talents. And Britt Ringstrom, I think. It was also this is her first time on the grid, and I saw her at the combine, and she did a lot of good stuff for Boston as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, even though Boston lost the match, and it was a pretty big in the number spread.
Oh, it was a close
it actually match. Was a lot closer than
and that's something that doesn't always come across in the numbers. And it was really close, like within a second or two on those first few races. And we saw that in some of ours as well, and it's interesting that the numbers don't show that, and it looked like it was a big, but they were really close.
Yeah. On race number 6, though, we saw Justin Wright. So he was the previous coach for Boston last year. But on the burpee box stepovers, he for some reason there was something that happened that the blood flow wasn't right in his body because he had some wraps on or something, and he kind of just blacked out. While he was in there, but no one was in his face telling him to get the heck off the grid. Yeah. So there was an issue there, and they ended up losing the race, I think, by 40 seconds or 50 seconds on that one, because he kept just trying to slog through and just try to get over the box.
Well, and that is an evolutionary thing. I think if you're in a life and death scenario, you're just going to keep doing what you were trying to do, keep fighting. And he was just trying to keep fighting and just not let his team down. And if he had knee wraps on, especially because from maybe for the overhead squats he did, because he did a lot of overhead squats in that race too on both, and it was on the second echo. And those dumbbell burpees over the box take so much out of the athletes. It's really hard for people, the fans watching, to really get it.
You don't get a sense of how hard those are.
Those are so heavy, and there's so much muscle contraction going on. We broke them up into 4s. I mean, I was trying to keep them, because we did it with 6s, and people were just crushed.
I was sitting in the, at some point going back and forth. I wanted to see how it looked in the bleachers versus being right there in the grid. And every time those dumbbells hit,
you felt it.
I was like, dude, that's heavy.
They were heavy.
You can't get that through the TV.
No, you don't. And then having to step up with one leg holding these two dumbbells. And
what were the weights again on them?
I believe it was 45 for the women and 75 for the men.
So this is 275-pound dumbbells.
Yeah.
God. That's
and then they roll and move, and then, like I said, it's just awkward. And so, for him to I think he got used up pretty hard in the first echo. And that's where you have to be careful with those echoes and spreading the load out, because if you overuse an athlete that might be really phenomenal at one movement, they're going to be slower the second time through.
Right,
and I think if he had those knee sleeves on, your legs pump a lot of blood when you flex your knee, and if you've got compression on your knees, like you would for like a powerlifting or something, it's going to affect the blood flow, and I can see why that would have caused complications.
Yeah, apparently it made them throw up afterwards. And
they had IV on them.
Yeah, IV on them. Damn.
Yeah,
that's crazy. I want to talk about race number 7 for DC Brawlers. So if you haven't seen the press conference, go ahead, you can watch it. And I questioned Justin Kotler a little bit on the strength of the guys, and this is the reason why. Their guys didn't lift as much as Boston. Actually, they were 200 pounds less than Boston, but then the girls is the only reason what saved them. The girls ended up lifting 700 pounds more than the girls in Boston. So thus, there's a 3-point swing, for DC. In your opinion, and you don't have to say anything if you don't want to, but in your opinion, has the males of the DC Brawlers stepped back a little bit?
From a strength perspective, there's a possibility of there. I know, with the loss of
Tim Curl.
Tim, yeah, that can affect it. And having some newer athletes too, they may not be able to perform the ladder yet. They've only had a week of camp or whatever, and that could have affected it as well.
Yeah.
But the Boston's strength was the fact that they had their women last year were really I think one of their best assets, and then their men were obviously some of the best in the league as well. But I think their women is really where they stood out last year.
Yeah. I can already see the videos on Instagram from DC Brawler guys with hashtag #FUDanny as they snatch the most weight of the world.
Well, I hope they do, right? I mean, it's our hometown team, right?
Oh, we love them.
We love them.
They know we love them.
Yeah.
But you have to be real analyst about it, right?
Well, and one thing, though, I will say is, it's 7 minutes. So, it seems like Justin, and this is something that we just consciously made a decision, he gave more time to his women.
Yep.
And so then his men didn't have as much time to lift the weight. So,
but your women lifted more weight than DC Brawlers women, which is also awesome.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. Well, with the addition, last year, I came at it from the perspective of this being a co-ed sport. Women can do pull-ups and the body weight elements just as fast, or really almost as fast as the men. So I went with kind of smaller women. I think we were called the Smurfs at some point when we went to LA, and we all laughed about it because we're like, yeah, actually, that makes perfect sense. And the shorter range of motion, right? So for certain cycle times that would be faster. But what we found was that we were lacking in the strength side. Alessandra Pacelli is was one of our strongest athletes, and she's not a strength specialist.
Right.
And so then we kind of, I don't know if we overcorrected, but with the signing of now Sarah Hopping Estrella and Colleen Foch, Colleen hit the 180 easy. She could have even went another bar in.
Yep.
Sandra, I rushed her, and so she went for the 180 and almost got the 180 thruster as well. She did it in training, and it's not a problem, but it was just more of a time factor. So, but what happens is with the men on DC, I kind of defend them a little bit because, the reason why the women had time to get so much weight was because the men did a little bit less.
And that's good. That's good to know. It's good to hear from a coach to say, okay, why that may have happened.
Yeah. Well, whatever it worked. They
It
got
worked.
3-0.
Got a W.
You can't argue with that.
It definitely worked. So the other match that happened was the LA Reign versus the Miami Surge, and just a couple of things that stood out. Miami did a different race 7 approach than anybody else did, which actually helped them out quite a bit. The guys lifted a couple bars early and then skipped, 5 or 6 bars or whatever.
I think it's the first time I've seen people go do a few bars in a row and then start going back and forth. But it's the first time I've seen somebody do and just skip whole sections in the middle.
Right.
Usually you'd have the athlete come down and start down here. So it was interesting, and it wasn't a strategy that I've thought about. And so I need to get my mind around it.
When I said something to Doug Chapman, he just gave me a wink. Then he walked by. I was like, wow, that's pretty awesome.
and I think somebody had mentioned it, and it was the idea, though, if you add that weight up, it's really just easy weight to get. And a lot of times the athletes don't mind doing those lighter bars. It kind of warms them up, and then they can skip ahead. So, I mean, we tend to default either start from the beginning, or because a thruster is kind of a longer movement, it's not as fast as a snatch or a power clean. We had our most of our men start somewhere on the third or fourth bar. Yeah. And of course, all of our women start from the beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
So tell me, from a team's perspective, one of the biggest shocks over the weekend for a lot of people were how strong and how good of a team Miami actually is.
I knew how good they were.
Well, a lot of people didn't. When I asked around, people were just like, wow, we were shocked that Miami could come through this strong. I mean, they have 3 major injuries right now, right?
Yeah.
So they're a little short-handed, but they're pretty deep. For coming from another team perspective, do you give them a little bit more credit when you're trying to look at
one of the things that we have a couple people on our staff that are absolute stalkers when it comes to Instagram and Facebook and stuff, and so they know these athletes. And I'm not. I wish I had more time to devote to it, but they really know they know these other athletes, and so we've been talking about Miami since the draft. Like, oh man, Miami's good this year. They've got they start listing names. And you're like, oh man, but then there was the injuries, and seeing them still come forward so strong was didn't make me feel any more comfortable about facing.
I think it's funny you mentioned that about the Instagram though, because I think we're going to see less and less of that because coaches are going to get smart. They're going to be like, don't do that. don't show them what we got.
We didn't show those butterfly muscle ups.
So the next quadrant, we're going to break down day 2 of yesterday's matches. So without further ado, quadrant 2.
Hey guys, we're back here in the firehouse at quadrant 2. And as I yell into the mic, just blew everybody's speakers out. So yesterday,
Phoenix Fire, Phoenix,
Phoenix
Rise. You know why I said that? So yesterday, who's the announcer?
I wasn't going to call him out. Travis.
We got to throw him under the bus a little bit. Travis said that during the match. I don't know if you caught it or not. And he was like, oh, go. And then, because sometimes you just get tongue-tied, right?
I think he said it twice.
And they were like, no, it's Phoenix Rise. San Francisco Fire. And he was like, and then he started saying it, and he said it over and over and over the right way, and he was like, okay, now I got it.
Yeah.
So anyway, sorry. It was Phoenix versus San Francisco yesterday at hometown crowd, and there were lines out the grid area. So it was at the San Jose Convention Center, and this is at the very end, and we had a capacity, I think, of 800, right, that could be in there?
I believe that was just the bleachers. I think there was also chairs, grid side, I think, added to
that.
So
it probably could go closer to 1,000.
Maybe 1,000. But if they would have allowed people to keep coming in, you would have had 1,500 or 2,000. I mean, they were
probably 2,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were people lined up outside that couldn't get in. And they were having to check. They were being really careful with the tickets versus the other matches where maybe they weren't as careful, but they had to be there because they had to control the crowd. But it was electric in there, especially when it comes down to race 11 for a victory. And that was the most intense thing I've seen in a long time in any sport.
Yeah.
That was really fun to watch. And congratulations on that, by the way.
Yeah, thanks.
It was not
the most fun to live through.
But what did that mean for you, though, to bring a victory at home in front of the San Francisco crowd?
Yeah, that was it was definitely, the crowd made it a lot more exciting. You can hear the crowd. When we were struggling in the beginning and we had some really close races, but when we won that race 8 was when we really had a definitive victory. The crowd went crazy.
And you won that by a lot.
And then the next triad, and it was cool to have so many fans there screaming. And
well, if you did the math, you had to win 8, 9, 10, 11, and you had to have a bonus flag in there.
And we knew that, and that's why I used it. I don't take the bonus flag lightly, because you have to really know your athletes and the other team's athletes, because even if you have a gut feeling like it's a good race for you, and I made this mistake against Phoenix in the semifinals last season. I had Chad Augustine they were sandbagged a bar, and he's like, I got 30 in a row. I'm like, are you sure? He's like, I could probably do 32 if I have to in case I get faulted. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna throw the bonus flag. I gotta go unbroken 32. It's like 20-pound sandbag to the bars or whatever. Well, 26 or 27, we go to sub out and bring our girl in. Candace, and she's like, "Are you good?" And he's like, "Yeah." And then he started failing, and then they swooped in and they stole our bonus, And so then after that, I'm like, "All right, I'm not going to use the bonus ever until I need it." And, well, it turns out I really needed it.
Yeah.
I went into those. I knew. I didn't want to use it on the that Jack and Jill because I was afraid that they would pull some magic out again. So I was going to wait.
But your Jack and Jill, I think the closest team was 17 seconds to you guys from the whole weekend.
Yeah,
that's crushing. You're just defeating everyone by boatloads.
Yeah. It was
that's where you show your big Dragon Balls.
Yeah, that's right.
So that means when you guys got done, 17 seconds later, everybody else
the next closest teams would have been done.
It's crazy.
Yeah, having Buddy Hitchcock be able to do the bar muscle ups as fast as he can, and then again, Chad's our 40 plus, who's a bodyweight specialist and can do muscle ups all day, and then we didn't even have to use our bodyweight ninja, the specialist that everybody's talking about, Eric Cardona,
right?
Until the Dr. Rolls of support, and he went out there fresh.
Electric.
Yeah,
that was electric when he did that. And then in race 11, Chad Augustine, when he had to grab the ball, the medicine ball to bar, is that what it's called?
Yeah, ball to bar.
So a lot of these teams employed this thing where the head was above, the bar, and they did this rotated thing.
Well, in gymnastics, there's a drill. I think it's called a ice cream maker or an ice.
Okay.
Where you lean back and it's like working toward lever progressions and things. And I think it was kind of a modified version of that.
Right. Yeah, but they weren't extending. They were just pivoting on here. But I did hear some talk and chatter after the weekend was over about maybe making it your head has to stay below the bar, and then if you want to do that, you're going to have to do some really funky stuff with your
So I saw this thing. It looked like that was the fast way to do it this year. Mm-hmm. Chad Augustine did it the old school way, and it was way faster than anybody else doing this pivot.
Well, we also had the ability to use Sarah hopping Estrella. She can do it too. The old-fashioned way. And what was great about her is that, I don't know if you guys noticed, but she was able to hold the ball between her feet and jump. She didn't even have to go to the box,
That's
right?
Crazy.
And so we ended up using her as a sub. And you either had to use a girl for that movement or sub her somewhere else, right? And so what we figured out was, Chad can do a big set. He could have done 10, and Sarah can do 10 too, but toward the end she started to slow down. And it was like, well, why not? It was a really fast sub because it's fairly close to the start line. Chad get a good set. If the ref is liking it and he's doing good, go ahead and do 9. And then Sarah was able to go out, grab it, and just do her 1 rep clean and run off. And Chad was able to do that with a sub with Sarah, and we were tied up with I think it was Amanda Goodman did it on their side, and she went 10 in a row. But that's how much faster they were.
So so yesterday's match between you guys and Phoenix, it was amazing to watch, and it was from the outside perspective, from the fans' perspective, it looked flawless across the whole board. And just sometimes teams get beat, right? I mean,
Phoenix was a team that we knew this might be the hardest match of our entire season, maybe even harder than the championship, unless we see them again in the championship, which I wouldn't be surprised.
Right.
And we I would say we prepared more for this match than any of the matches that we did last season, because anticipating that Phoenix was going to be one of our toughest challenges. So,
from your perspective, though, how did the match go for San Francisco Fire?
It didn't go according to plan. We had little hiccups here and there. I think some of our newer athletes, again, there's just those little tiny things. One example, we wanted to save we did an extra sub. Usually on partner forward, you do 2 quadrants. It's kind of a general thing most people do, and then they sub the 2 athletes out, and they sub the next 2 on, then you have 2 athletes do that. Well, it's so close to the start line, we went ahead and had our Jolene come out and do those kettlebells to save Ashley Beaver so she could be a little fresher for the next elements. Well, we had a line fault, so the tag happened where the hands were past the line, and that's the hands need to touch. Doesn't matter where your bodies are, but on a substitution, you
can't reach out and touch. You have to stay back.
The hands have to touch behind the line, and so they were so amped up. First race of the season for these athletes, first time on the grid as professional athletes.
Yeah.
Line fault, whistle blow, stop. Nobody knows what's going on. Come back, touch, and then in that race we lost by about a second, less than a second.
Yeah, so that was it.
And that and that was race 1, and then so that didn't go well.
And then I was surprised by that too, because your girls most of the time were kettlebell snatching, and not clean and jerk.
Yeah.
Right? And the other team was clean and jerk. And I was like, man, they should be I didn't see the line fall.
Well, we got faulted, too, a couple times because both kettlebells needed to make clear contact on the floor.
At the same time?
Just they both needed to hit. And there was a couple times when you're going that fast, it's kind of a modified swing, too. So they're going so low. And if only one of them hit. So I think we got faulted 2 or 3 times on that.
Well, it's pretty easy as a judge to tell because your whole body shakes when they hit. So.
Yeah, you feel it on the floor, too, when they're that heavy.
I wonder what the floor looks like after they pull
and I thought about throwing that challenge flag, because it was such a close. The idea behind the challenge flag is the challenge that you're making has to affect the outcome. And I think sometimes coaches will see something that went wrong, but if you lose by 10 or 15 seconds, there has to be a pretty egregious error on the ref's side to make a difference.
And it's not going to be probably.
And that one was so close, I was like, I could throw it, but I was like, just let it go.
Yeah.
And then it wouldn't have been as scary of a race for us if I did get that point.
Right. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
But and then the next race too, the mirror race, we set a record by about 15 seconds, I think, or 12 seconds over what we did in practice.
Wow.
And they still beat us by a couple seconds. And as dejected as some of the athletes were, it was like, hey guys, we lost that race, but we have the second fastest time in the league.
Right.
You can't feel too bad about that, even though in the moment it's upsetting. But those first few races can sometimes set the tone for the rest of the match, and we're comfortable being in a position from coming from behind because we know it's. I'd rather have a team of people that that they're not as concerned about how the first races go because we can always finish strong. And that's the right mindset to have versus it being backwards and saying, "Oh, we got to get all our points now because we don't know how it's going to go later." Now if we do well in the beginning, it's great. We know we're going to do good later, and if we do poorly in the beginning, it's okay because we know we can still make a comeback.
Well, that was the Baltimore approach. They went hard and fast at the beginning and won, I think, 4 out of the first 5, something like that.
Yeah.
But they just gassed out by the end. They didn't have it in them.
Yeah, it comes down to that juggling of your athletes and spreading the load. Now with the new rules of being able to change your lineup.
Yeah.
You have to be smart about it. And I think a lot of teams did draft some specialists, and the problem is going to be now is if you have people, you may not use them at all or only for 1 or 2 elements. And again, that means the other 4 athletes, 4 men or whatever,
They're getting used a lot.
And it does usually show up in the triads.
Yeah, and God forbid you have an injury. We make such a big deal about the specialists, and I think what we're seeing is maybe if you look at somebody, I'm thinking Alyssa Ritchie, who just you would peg her in a heartbeat as being gymnastics, and nope, she's strong, really strong for her size, obviously.
Absolutely,
and she's trying to make worlds in weightlifting.
Yeah,
strong.
Yeah, you're a specialist, but you have to be able to do the other stuff, and you've got to be able to provide. It's still going to be back to the people that can do both.
Yeah, you have to
the Andrew Rapes.
Exactly. You need options, and as a coach, and when I'm looking at strategies for races, they're designed to you might need to be able to do muscle ups and go right into a heavy barbell, and if you have to make that sub, it's going to cost you valuable seconds. Whereas the athletes that may not want to do muscle ups, but they still need to be able to do 5 or 6. And I'm pretty sure someone like Dmitry Kolkov is going to learn that, and he'll be fine at it once he figures it out and learns it and gets taught it. But until then, he's going to be limited, and on a triad, you're not going to have him do 10 unbroken muscle ups and then the wall ball. It's so you have to. So now you're more limited, and then if you have an injury or something, the plan falls apart. You don't have teammates that can back each other up.
Yeah, and something I think that separates San Francisco Fire from other teams is the fact that you're talking about these little tiny details, right, in a match, whereas other teams are having issues with using the workhorses at the beginning and gassing out at the end. There's a reason why a coach is really, really imperative on every grid team when you are have the big strategy at the beginning. And this is the reason why teams like Phoenix and San Francisco Fire and DC Brawlers are consistently winning, because they're thinking now on the little terms, the little tiny mistakes that they need to fix versus the big mistakes that a lot of the other teams are facing right now and still trying to learn behind the power curve.
Yeah, there's different analogies you could make, but if you think about a game of chess, all the pieces have different roles than they need to be. But sometimes I feel like some people are still trying to learn the rules, and they don't necessarily
have the strategy.
They have the basic understanding, but they don't have the strategies and the combinations down.
No, I think that's a great analogy, because I think a lot of people, right, you can't be strategic if you don't know if you don't know the basic fundamental rules so well that you've got that part, and now I can use those and manipulate those rules in a strategic way. There's still people out there trying to figure out how to play grid.
Yeah,
and they don't know yet.
And that that's where I think Justin Kotler and I both had kind of a little bit of a lead last season, was because we had so much experience from the CrossFit Games coaching teams,
right?
And even local competitions and local teams. We started doing team competitions in 2008, 2009, just for fun, and inviting local gyms out, and I got really passionate about that in the very beginning. And
what's the first year you guys went to the games as a team?
2008, we actually competed. That was the first time they had teams at the games. Before that, it was just
the Affiliate Cup.
Didn't you say something about the Winnebago or something like that?
Oh, I remember when I went out there to judge that 2012 or 11, I can't remember, and I saw you guys
trailer.
It was like
Diablo.
an RV or something.
Yeah,
and I was like,
RV,
I'm going to have one of those when I have my gym. We had our gym had been open for like a year or something too.
Well, it's funny because back in 2007, 2008, it was we didn't have a lot of depth of talent at our gym, but I was like, well, we can be the most fun gym and have the most party.
That's exactly what.
If we're having the most fun, then people will stick around long enough to get good.
Yeah.
Right.
And truth be told, I've been following you guys forever for that, because I'm more impressed by gyms that have that kind of community versus, oh, great, you've got a bunch of games athletes. That's awesome. It is awesome.
Yeah.
But I think it's cooler the way you guys have kind of built both. I think Invictus does the same thing.
Yeah, definitely.
There's New England is probably very similar. But that's pretty badass for a community to be able to embrace that competitive spirit and the fun at the same time.
And it is. There's a lot of juggling and a deliberateness to it. You can't just let it go, because drama will kind of make things come apart and people will come and go and everything. But going back to Justin and DC, that meant we were kind of one step ahead of everybody, to where we could already have a general strategy in place, and then just say, okay, where are the little details where I can gain a second here or a second there?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So, next quadrant we have Drew Canavero from the San Francisco Fire. So stay tuned for quadrant 3. Welcome to quadrant 3. We are in the Firehouse in San Francisco. Take a look at this awesome facility, and with us, we have the workhorse for the San Francisco Fire, Mr. Drew Canavero.
Hello.
What's up, bro?
Nothing much.
Congratulations on the victory yesterday against Phoenix.
You.
That was an incredible match.
It looked like it was exciting from the stands.
How was it? It must have been way more exciting being a part of it.
It was, after race 7, as a team, I think a lot of people were feeling pretty deflated. A lot of the newer people.
Yeah.
I'm more accustomed to coming from behind.
Right.
It was not a position that we were unaccustomed to. And I did
That's
the math.
a little awkward to talk about in our podcast.
Yeah.
But that's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, you have to explore.
Yeah, right.
Only with someone you're really comfortable with, you have to have a safe word as well.
That's right.
You always have to have a safe word.
You're totally right.
But,
Danny's safe word is harder.
Harder?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's weird.
Or brisket. That's
So
for you
guys, do you feel the energy out there? I mean, I think it's a better venue now this season. Like,
oh my
it's more compressed. It's like a big party little room.
Yeah, I agree. I love the pivot the league made this year away from trying to fill bigger arenas that seemed empty. I mean, we had one of the better last year at Cal. We had a really well attended match, upwards of 3,000. But when you're at 12,000 seat arena,
right,
it still seems kind of empty. But here it felt much larger than 800 people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And could you guys feel that though on the grid? Like, could you feel that energy?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's generally, we're doing our best to try and communicate to the crowd to get them pumped up, get them amped up as much as possible. That became a lot easier when Eric came out for those back row wall support.
Oh my God.
It's kind of crazy. He went from a relative unknown to in 24 seconds.
Right.
He's a household name now.
Yeah.
That reinvigorated everybody. That was kind of that spark that we needed.
Well, the butterfly muscle ups, right? I'm calling them butterfly muscle ups. Yep. Whatever it was, right? Was that butterfly muscle ups?
Yep.
That was incredible. Who was it that did that for the
team? So that was actually Jer, and
okay.
I think this is something that we do exceptionally well. We have these really kind of distributed and diffuse learning kind of networks here. When you bring athletes together and you encourage those athletes to collaborate and learn from one another.
Yep.
Eric taught Jer how to do butterfly muscle-ups basically in 2 days. Jer's a far better athlete than myself, apparently, with just a labrum that won't quit.
Yeah.
I won't be doing butterfly muscle-ups anytime soon.
Right.
But it was incredible to see Jer, within 2 practices, have something that, in his repertoire that saved us so much time.
So much time.
So much time.
Yeah, you guys pulled ahead by, I think, 5, maybe 6 reps, and when you were dead even going into that quadrant. Then 5 or 6 reps, and then when he started doing the back roll supports at the end, it just crushed. By the way, I took careful notes of all the times of all the teams, right?
Good man.
Danny's our money ball.
Yeah.
And the Brian DiPodesta of this operation.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So races 8, 9, and 10 were so incredible, in fact, that you beat any other team by between 13 and 29 seconds by any other team closest to you. That was those are some incredible numbers, because no other race do you see that anybody beat
there wasn't that
13
big a gap.
seconds.
No.
Right. There's not a big gap between first and second. You guys crushed those races. Having that feeling in the middle of the
Lit them
match
on fire.
Well, I see what you did there.
Puns.
Didn't crush them.
Puns are fun. No, but that had to be an incredible feeling. And then race 11 just must have been a foregone conclusion for you guys.
At that point, to step back, we knew that it was going to be a dogfight through the first 7 races. We knew that Phoenix was hungry. We knew that they did a hell of a job drafting. Their lineup was strong, powerful, taller individuals, which in the Echoes you saw that there's not a team in the league that can keep up with Phoenix in that Echo format with those dumbbell burpees over the box. And then when you have guys like Day Nichols and Blaine closing out those hang cleans, you can't come into the 4th quadrant with a 10-rep deficit with that.
Yeah, you're not going to catch them.
And we had a strategy that was theoretically going to work for the ladder. We just had a couple people missed a couple bars, maybe not getting off the grid as quickly as they could have. And we had the winning bar. Chad had the winning bar at the bottom of the squat. He just needed that extra half second to stand up with it. And so those just kind of came out of execution. But our goal was to keep within 2. We got to within 5. But again, having been in that position before, I've known not to panic.
Right.
Did the math. I know that we're a team that is more than capable of winning the last 4 races in very convincing fashion. And with that bonus flag at our disposal, the math worked out.
From a fan's perspective, when I was back there analyzing the matches and everything, after I saw race 8 and how much you slaughtered race 8, I was like, why wasn't the bonus flag out there? You knew those 2 guys were amazing, in the rings, right? Why didn't you throw the bonus flag? And then in race 9, after you guys crushed race 9, I was like, why wasn't the bonus flag thrown again? And then I was like, oh my god.
Race 10, I talked to Jeremy about that. Race 8, there was some hesitance to throw it because of the recent history. Phoenix is definitely a team that can come and steal that bonus flag. They did that to us in race 8 last time, and it would be unwise to discount their ability with that. And they had Braden Ruby, who's phenomenal, and they are not a weak gymnastics team whatsoever. We're a team that tends to rely a lot of our conditioning. Again, I think we substituted really, really well. The ladies came out and just did phenomenally well in race 9, but we knew that we'd be subbing in Buddy in race 10, who not only is one of our more proficient at muscle up variations, he can also cycle the hell of a barbell, as everyone kind of saw at the end. So knowing that we had Buddy coming in to race 10, we felt like, okay, we have some momentum now. We have a fresh athlete. If we're going to throw it, this is where we're going to throw it. And then after we got that, we practiced the sprint relays more than any other race, so we knew that was going to be a good race for us.
Yeah. You talked about your women just recently. So everyone talks about the duo of Taylar Stallings and Becca Day for DC Brawlers, right? And how the women of DC are so strong. But when you look at the race 7 and the ladder, the team that actually got the most weight put up was the girls. The girls from San Francisco Fire actually beat out the girls from DC Brawlers. Now, that could have been a strategy that they had because, maybe they didn't need the girls to go, more, and they needed the guys to get more weight for the total. I don't know.
I'm sure Coach Cutler will let us know.
Either way, though, the San Francisco Fire women still did.
They did
more weight than the
that day.
Brawler girls.
They lifted more weight.
Yes, they did.
It's last year the criticism wasn't it was fair that we just didn't have powerful enough women to kind of compete with the strong women in the league. We've rectified that. We have Candace Wagner, who cycles a deadlift better than arguably anybody in the league.
Oh yeah.
Colleen Foch, who snatches 200 pounds. Ashley Beaver, who's just a solid. She's like the female equivalent of Jer Sasser, who was the real workhorse last night. Jer was phenomenal, and Ashley was in through the entire race and just was phenomenal. So we have a lot of we have an Olympian, a near Olympian in Sarah Hopping, who has a 120-pound clean and jerk.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Or 120-kilo clean and jerk. So we have a really powerful women's lineup that goes beyond just two. You can talk all you want about a dynamic duo. Well, we have a lineup where we have, 6 women who are capable of closing.
I was going to say the 4 horsewomen, but maybe that's not right.
4 horse people.
Sorry, 4 horse people.
Persons. I've actually been talking to Jeremy a lot about that. We're still on a truncated schedule with regards to our season. We're playing 3 regular season matches before the playoffs. When we expand next year, the year following, to an 8, 10, 12 game schedule, you're going to have a lot more than just a dynamic duo.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be...
Yeah, the bench is going to have to be deeper.
We already saw injuries in the first week. I mean, I apparently looked really bad on the
replay.
Well,
I wanted to ask about that, right? So from the fans, they saw you dive into the finish line, right? Yeah. So what happened there?
We had adjusted my strategy with the thruster ladder. We in practice had originally had me going out there, starting a few bars later, going out to 240. In the run-throughs, me having to take a majority of the hang cleans in the echoes, I kind of wrecked my legs a bit. So I told him, listen, I'm in terms of pounds per second, I'm one of the faster on the team in getting from quadrant to quadrant. Let me start at the beginning, get to 225 as quickly as possible, and get off, so that Will and Tyler and Colleen and our stronger male and female athletes
plenty of time
are going to have a little more time to be a little more deliberate on the grid. I knew I was moving pretty well. Got to 225. I looked over at Jeremy, kind of half expecting that he was going to tell me to go to 240. He gave me the call to keep going. So instead of pulling the bar behind me a little bit more, I just kind of let it drop. And as I began to step forward, kind of pivoted, kind of cracked me on the back of my heel, which hurt.
Yeah.
But I dove because it knocked my shoe off. So I actually couldn't run. So I was just like, okay, let's just go.
To me, it looked like you couldn't use your foot. Like there was like a snap or something happened. I was like, oh my God, medic, please run over there.
No,
quick.
I knew as soon as it happened that it was almost kind of like a stinger.
Right.
It just it was immediately kind of point sensitive. It was a little numb, but the Achilles was fine. I can plantar, I can dorsiflex. Just got a nice little bruise, which I'd be a lot more upset if we had lost.
Yeah.
And then had this adding injury to insult.
Yeah.
But. No, I haven't seen the replay. I'm hoping my mom doesn't either.
Yeah. So it looked a little scary.
I got to ask you, any big surprises over the weekend, or did it run just as you thought with all the teams?
I think the only surprise I had was how well Miami did. And
they did very well, especially with their injuries.
I have a few friends on that team, and I think it was really impressive how well the men did.
Mm-hmm.
They did phenomenally well, and there were a few substitutions that were by necessity, and for Fryman on the women's side, who just Cherie Chan, who's a local, was just oh my God, she was a game changer for Miami.
She's a rookie, right?
Rookie this year. So we're seeing rookies make impacts immediately in the first match of the season, which is really, really exciting. And I think that, again, lends itself to just that exponential growth in our learning of how this sport is played. And the teams that learned really quickly from their mistakes last year, you see that learning curve is not nearly as pronounced. And there are other teams where you see that they're still have have some things to learn.
There are a lot of teams that still think they're doing a CrossFit competition, you know, and we're not afraid to say CrossFit. It is a functional fitness competition, or you know, any variation of. It's not the same. This is a different sport, and if you don't grasp that, and if you keep thinking that, well, I can hang clean those weights and I can do it in an 8-minute AMRAP, and if you think in those terms, you're not going to get grid. You have to educate yourself on the sport. You can tell teams like San Francisco Fire. I think Miami's getting there with Coach Chapman. He's wrapping his head around grid really well. Talked to him last night, and I mean, he's got a lot. His experience goes deep in functional fitness competition, but he knows this is a different sport. Yeah. I think anybody that figures that out is doing better. The ones that are still hesitating to really dive in and treat this different, you're seeing
and the coaches may understand it, but not necessarily the players.
That's what I'm talking about, the athletes.
And you saw that particularly in the Boston Iron match. I don't know if you got the chance to watch that one. Yeah. Right, and for the burpee box step-overs. And I know there was an issue that was happening with the player, and I think it was Justin Wright. Mm-hmm. And he
was a coach. He was their coach last year, correct?
Yeah.
He was.
Yes, he was. Well, so he was trying to do the burpee box step-overs, and so come to find out, he had these wraps around his ankles or his knees, and he forgot to take off the wraps during that race.
Occlusion training mid-race.
Right, yeah. That's exactly it.
So
Make
basically,
sure you restrict the blood flow to the extremities.
Yes. So basically, he was brain, like his brain was somewhere else when he was trying to do it.
The blood flow was not going.
And but we didn't see anybody yelling at him, get off the grid either, right? And he couldn't step up anymore.
It wasn't so much the injury or the issue. It was, hey, just go, right?
Just get off.
We'll figure it out over there. But he kept trying to slog through it. Nobody was saying go.
Yeah.
And it's a little dig on Boston there, but no big deal, right? I mean, it's first match of the season, right? But that's grid, right? But we're kind of used to that in functional fitness and in CrossFit, where you're like, okay, just suck it up and get that rope climb, just keep going, right? No, get off the grid. Yep. Let somebody else come in and do it.
So, looking forward to watching you for the rest of the season. Thank you very much for joining us on the show, and congratulations yesterday on your victory.
Good luck with the new gym.
Oh, thank you so much.
And stay tuned for Quadrant 4.
Hey, here we are, Quadrant 4. Man, I think, honestly, this is probably going to be one of our best shows. No offense to many of our other guests. We've had great shows, but having JJ on here, helping us run through all the matches from this weekend was awesome.
And Drew was dope.
Yeah, even with his scratchy voice. I don't think we ever mentioned it on when we were actually interviewing him, but he had a scratchy voice. You can obviously hear it. Not his normal tone.
No. He has asthma, and but then also yesterday,
a lot of
screaming and stuff.
So can't blame him for that. They're all probably beat up pretty well. Awesome show. Make sure you guys go sign up on gridinvitational.com.
Right now.
Like,
you can even stop the show and go there.
Just turn it off, okay? Right. And go to gridinvitational.com. Become a fan of Team GridCast.
Team GridCast. Do it now. All right, guys. Incredible weekend. Loved the whole experience out here in San Jose.
If you guys didn't catch the matches online, they're going to come back, or they'll be on NBC.
Oh, yeah, next month.
Yep.
In July. So the season started. Thank God, right?
We're here.
Until next time, clean up your jerks and snatches, drink your beer in batches, and always dominate your good matches. See you later, guys.
See ya.